Hey Ken, this is Greg. It's Monday, January the 10th. We were out of school Thursday and Friday because of snow and cold. And COVID is really big. Numbers are really high. We're now in masks the whole time. Had to wear a mask all day. We have to wear a mask anytime we're in school and we're with people. I'm recording this in my last period. It's a free period for me. It's a planning period. I tried to record during class time today, and I guess my camera was full and it wouldn't record, so I deleted it. I cleaned it out, and I'm working on it here. Let me tell you what we talked about in class today. It wasn't a very good recording to begin with. First of all, I went over, I refreshed their memories on the three relationships that are used in this story: the political, and the class and the social relationship. We talked about that. I don't know if you got this the other day. I hope you did, about the two climaxes in this show, or in this book. The one involves Atticus Finch and Tom Robinson and Bob Ewell, really both the Ewells, Mayella as well. And that climax is reached in the courtroom itself. The second climax is at the end of the story. It involves the Finches, both not just Atticus, but Jim and Scout as well, along with Boo Radley and Bob Ewell again. And I didn't tell them where that took place. That would be giving things away. So we talked about that. We talked about how society was set up in the South at this time during the Great Depression, and you had the three classes: the upper, the middle, and the lower classes. The upper class consisting of townspeople, middle class of farmers, and the lower class people like the Ewells. And then the imaginary line that no one crossed that separated the whites and the blacks, because at no time would a white person allow themselves to be put in a position where a black person would be considered their equal. And the same way, the blacks were never allowed to cross that imaginary line to be considered an equal with whites. I'm not sure whether we talked about this in class. We did remote learning on Thursday and Friday, or I did it on the recording. But we talked about the peculiar class that Calpurnia, the cook, is in. Calpurnia is a black woman, but she has special. She's a lot different than most of the other blacks that are in the community. First of all, she works for Atticus, and she's the cook, but she's much more than that. She is really the surrogate mother, the mother that's in place of Atticus's dead wife, and Atticus trusts her implicitly in raising his children and taking care of his children. And so from that standpoint, you could say, yeah, Calpurnia is different. Is she considered an equal with Atticus and the whites? Yes and no. Yes and no. Atticus has given her a special place, and he has allowed it. We're not sure how a student asked the question in class. I thought it was a pretty good question. Would Calpurnia be considered that special class if the man she was working for was not Atticus Finch, if he was maybe Bob Ewell or whatever? And I thought that was a great question, and the answer, of course, to that was probably not. She wouldn't be considered. And of course, Bob Ewell, as you know, you read the book, Bob Ewell would never treat Calpurnia like Atticus does. Anyway, we talked about the classes. We talked about the climaxes, and we talked about the relationships in the book. And then I gave them a quiz. Had them put everything away. I gave them a piece of paper. Question number one, I think, was describe the class situation, and I really basically wanted them to draw me the drawing that I had given them. And then question number two, what are the three relationships talk about in the story? They had to write that, and then they were supposed to, the diagram that I'd given them about the double climax in this book, they were supposed to reproduce that as well. Afterwards, we did one of the things that's especially with this book, one of my favorite things to do, but we didn't really do it much today, is my classroom. You can't see it. I'm in a 3/4 of a circle. I don't have rows. I have, it goes around. And in the middle of this, I have a stool, which I'm sitting on right now. And I put the stool, I have a carpet right in the middle of the room. And I put the stool out on the carpet, and I call that the hot seat. I divide the class into halves, and then I give them a question as a deeper level thinking question, and not just a basic answer that they're supposed to answer, such as, we've read chapters 1 and 2 now. I asked them to characterize Scout. What makes her tick? Why does she behave the way that she does? And describe along the same lines of her first day in school with a brand new teacher. And so I let one side of the room go. They choose a spokesperson. I let them answer as best they can, and then I give the other side a chance to either add or subtract or rebut or whatever. And then I always choose winners. Which side has the better answer. And we did that today. I had 2 questions. I also wanted them to talk about Walter Cunningham and his episode with the teacher, and he didn't have any lunch, and the teacher offered to give him a quarter to go eat at the diner. And we discussed that. We discussed his motivation, and really, I mean, he was, as Atticus told Scout, Walter is a farmer. His dad is a farmer, and they were hit worst by the Great Depression. And so Walter is probably very self-conscious about his poverty. He had hookworms, as you can remember from reading the story as well. They seldom wore shoes, and it said in the chapter, I think it was this chapter, after the first day, nobody wore shoes until it got colder outside. Everybody just came barefooted to school. So we talked about that. We talked about the teacher and the things that made her tick. Why did she treat Scout the way she did? What was going on in her life? And why did she seem ill prepared? Well, the obvious answer, which I finally got out of the kids, was this is her first day ever of teaching. Not just this year, but ever. She's just 21 years old, and she's probably wanting to make the first day of class, she's probably wanting everyone to know who's in charge and who's not. That's a standard teaching tactic. And however, Miss Caroline, she just wasn't very good at it. She didn't know how to handle situations. I'm sure she'd been thoroughly instructed in how to teach, but not everything that you encounter in a class can you learn in a college classroom. And you just have to learn how to handle things. So, she's young, she's pretty. It's her first day ever of teaching. She's probably insecure in what she's doing. She has learned a brand new method that's against everything that, as you remember, as Jim called the Dewey Decimal System. I had to point that out to them on Friday when we read what the Dewey Decimal System really is. And she's learned a brand new method, and she's facing a lot of obstacles when she comes in. Plus, and we didn't even talk about this, she's teaching a first grade where most of the kids in there are repeat first graders. We haven't met Burris Ewell. I think we meet him tomorrow. I may be wrong there in tomorrow's reading. But we haven't met him yet, and what kind of problems he's going to present for Miss Caroline as well. We talked about, of course, Scout having particular troubles with Miss Caroline this day. We talked about her getting hit on the hands, patted on the hands with the ruler. The teacher did that. And Scout having to go stand in the corner. So anyway, I mean, really, that's about all we talked about today. Like I said, I'm just doing this in my last period because I guess my camera was full, my disc was full. But anyway, one last thing has nothing to do with this. So if you're keeping up with this does. If you're keeping up with the reading, we've read chapters 1 and 2. We'll read chapter 3 in class tomorrow. One last thing has nothing at all to do with the book. I bought, this is amazing, I bought a flash drive last night from Amazon. It's a 2 terabyte flash drive. Now I have 2 external 2 terabyte drives at home, but they're the hard thing with connect with the USB. And but a flash drive, 2 terabytes. That is amazing. People like me and you could remember back in the late 70s, early 80s when somebody bought them a brand new internal disk drive that had 20 megabytes on it, and they were living high on the hog. Well, now I've got a 2 terabyte flash drive. One of my drives I have at home is 2 terabytes. I'm about 75 to 80% full, so I keep a lot of things on it. It's just technology, the pace of technology sometimes amazes me. But anyway, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good day. See you.